Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Ever wondered how something as simple as breath can revolutionize your productivity and melt the stress right out of your shoulders? Well, back in September of 2021, I had the honor of sitting down with my then coach and now friend, Kelsey Murphy, on her podcast, Whiskey and Work. This conversation was originally aired, and it was called Rituals and Biohacks for More Productivity and Less Stress. Kelsey had invited me to share some bite-sized breathwork practices, which were rooted, of course, in Eastern science or yoga, Shastra philosophy, and backed by Western understanding. And these practices were perfectly tailored, and still are, for high performers who might be experiencing a lot of stress. Of course, it was 2021. We know what that was like. As parents, juggling many things, maybe feeling overwhelmed, or just craving more ease during a busy day. We talk about how structured breath routines and rituals can recenter and ground the nervous system, both mid-chaos, so in a crisis situation where you need to really center and ground, but also as a habitual ritual in daily life, as a morning routine or an evening routine. And also my very favorite micro biohacks, which I explain to help you find and experience peace and presence and sustained energy throughout the day. Kelsey's signature style is straight-talking, curiosity-driven, and always rooted in her experience as an advertising director turned Fortune 500 coach. And she just creates a beautiful container for exploring how we can live and lead with more spaciousness and less reactivity. So if you've ever needed the permission to just breathe, maybe right now this summer, you're needing a break from all of the hectic family things or work-life balance things you're trying to juggle, then this conversation is for you. We are going to explore some tools that you can start using immediately in your afternoons, in your mornings, in your evenings, or during your most stressful moments throughout the day. I cannot wait to hear your feedback. Please screenshot this episode and let me know what was your favorite tip or what was your favorite practice or biohack. It's an experiential conversation and episode, so I can't wait to hear how you enjoy the practices within.
I'm Kelsey Murphy, and I'm so pumped to have you here today. I wanted to come on and tell you guys about this podcast episode because I just recorded it yesterday. And you guys know sometimes I batch my podcast episodes. This one is really, really fresh. And I recorded it yesterday and I got done with the recording and my mom was in town. She was watching Danny Girl, my youngest. And I got to go at breakfast with my mom and I was just like, sitting there at breakfast, looking at her, shaking my head, being like, how do I get to talk to these people? Like, how do I get to connect with them and to work with them and coach them? Because this specific person you're going to meet today, the incredible Harmony Slater, she is someone that I met through working with me. We've been working together for a little while now, and she joined the Coaches Mastermind. And the more I learned about Harmony, the more I was shocked. In this podcast episode, there are things that I learned about her that I'm like, I mean, you keep getting more impressive and cooler every single time we talk. And I feel like those are the friends that you want in your life, right? So I'm loaning Harmony to you because she's incredible. She's one of those people that just has the most humble, kind, beautiful spirit. And then you start finding out all these things about her. She's insanely successful, world renowned. Like, her bio is nuts. And I think that those are the kinds of people that you want in your life, right? That you connect with them because you like them as a human, because they're kind and thoughtful and loving and wonderful. And then the more you get to know about them, the more you find out all these like secret nooks and crannies. Very impressive, very adventurous, very thoughtful things that they have done. So here's my quick bio on Harmony so you can get all the facts on her before you listen to her teach you about the incredible world of breathwork, because what she specializes in, honestly, is helping her clients and people to overcome the negative physical and mental effects of chronic stress. And she helps us create this awareness around irregular breathing patterns, because those irregular breathing patterns that you might not notice that you have, those are what are leading to the feelings of fatigue, your inability to concentrate, that lack of kind of mind-body connection. Like, if you want to be more focused, more productive, you want to be able to figure out what your passion is, where you should be focusing in business, like focusing on your breath work and noticing those irregular patterns and shifting those in just a few minutes a day, literally will make you a happier person. It will increase your oxytocin. It will increase your dopamine. It will allow you to concentrate for longer periods of time. It is legit going to make you smarter and happier by just noticing your breathing patterns and really practicing your breath work for a few minutes a day. It is straight up like working out a muscle. So that is something that I felt like was invaluable when I started learning that from Harmony. She spoke to me about breath work in a way that I had not been spoken to about it before. She taught me the science of it, and she gave me really, really simple exercises that were unique exercises that worked really well for me. So I wanted to bring her on here. For her bio and her background, you will learn, she will talk about this a little bit, but she's a certified Ashtanga yoga teacher and wellness coach. And what's crazy about that is she is one of less than 20 women in the entire world to hold that honor, right? So she's going to tell you what that entailed, how she got that honor, what she had to do for that. She has this extensive background in Buddhism and a lot of the ancient teaching. She's traveled all over, religious studies, so many incredible things. And then she went on to open her own yoga studio. And she had this incredible yoga studio career. And then she had this moment of reckoning and realizing that, whoa, like I may need a little bit more freedom. I might need to shift my idea of what work looks like when I have a child. And that is, I think, really where our paths intersected on understanding how she could create a life or a lifestyle that honored her desire to be there for her kid, and as well as her desire to do something that she felt really purposeful about. So it's a really beautiful, rad podcast. I'm so happy to bring it to you. I'm so happy to introduce you to Harmony and her world, because she has so much cool stuff going on. So without me babbling on anymore, I want to introduce you to the latest and greatest addition to the Whiskey and Work podcast with the incredible, the soulful, the brilliant, the humble, and beautiful Harmony Slater. Hey, Harmony.
Hey, Kelsey.
How are you, my dear?
I'm doing so good. It's so nice to chat with you today.
I know. Thank you so much for making the time. I am so excited to have you on here and to be talking about all of the amazing things that you've been doing, because I have selfishly benefited from them, and especially in having you in our crew and the Coaches Mastermind. You have just been such an amazing resource for all of us as we're trying to navigate a really crazy time in the world. And so I'm so excited to hear more about that and to have this kind of dedicated space right now to dig deeper.
Well, thank you. It's been just such a pleasure to be a part of your mastermind group. And I feel like I've also had the benefit of being there for the last 2 years almost, in different ways, in different capacities, and different, coaching capacities that you've been offering. So it's my pleasure to just, give back to you as much as I can, because it's mutually beneficial for sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, before we jump in, will you give everybody just a little lay of the land of who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I guess my official title is Certified Ashtanga Yoga Teacher. And for those listening who don't really know what that is or don't know what the difference is between like a certified Ashtanga Yoga teacher or like just a regular yoga teacher, it basically means that I've spent 10 years training in this very sort of disciplined style of yoga in a place called Mysore, India, and then have attained an advanced level of yoga practice. And there's only a handful of certified teachers in the world. So that entailed going to India over 15 times and staying there for longer periods, like 3 or 4 months, and practicing and studying and learning. So that was sort of the beginning of my journey, not the very beginning, but the beginning of my journey to India, and sort of a lifelong love affair with India. But it started my studies and my learning of mindfulness and pranayama, which is the ancient Indian origins of all breathwork practices and meditation practices. I have a degree in religious studies and philosophy as well. And that was really my first sort of introduction to meditation. I studied Buddhist meditation in depth and wrote a thesis on it, and traveled to China actually right before going to India to research Buddhist meditation practices. So I really was interested in these healing art forms from the East at a very young and formative age. And eventually I moved back to Canada after spending 6 years living in Southeast Asia and teaching and studying and learning there, and started my own yoga school. So I ran my own yoga school in Victoria, BC for 7 years. I had my beautiful son, who's now almost 11. And that was a really amazing adventure of running my own business, my own yoga school, and eventually sold it and started traveling and teaching yoga all over the world to thousands of people in over 30 different countries around the globe. And that's kind of when our paths crossed. I was at a crossroads where I'd been traveling and teaching basically half of the year, 2 to 3 weeks out of every month. Going to different yoga schools, different conferences, different retreats, and offering these techniques to students and people who were interested in learning from me. And I was wanting to, shift my business from one where I had to be on the road all the time to one where I could be a little bit more free and a little bit less dependent on travel, so that I could stay home with my son a little bit more. And so I started to shift my business into working more one-on-one with basically entrepreneurial women who have their own practices, yoga studios, or who are building their own health and wellness coaching businesses. I'm also a certified health and wellness coach. So I have these sort of intersections going on. And I started to kind of work more on coaching and helping women who are high achievers, often super A-type personalities that are like super busy all day long, being moms, doing everything that they do. I started to help them integrate a little bit of breath work, a little bit of mindfulness practices into their busy days in very easy, accessible ways. And they started having these amazing results of decreasing overwhelm, decreased anxiety, better sleep, more energy at the end of the day, so they could like play with their kids and not feel irritable. So that's sort of been my crazy journey. And I'm also the producer of the Finding Harmony podcast, which I co-host with my husband, who is hilarious. So
I love that. Oh my goodness. And yes, you have an amazing podcast. If you guys have not had a chance to listen to it, I mean, that is the next stop for you after this podcast, because it is so fun and delightful. And I will say thank you so much for giving us that background of your journey, because I think it's so important for all of us to know and to hear that there can be so many different passions and explorations that we can have throughout our lifetime, right? And you sharing the evolution of what you've gone through, really, like this, a lot of us, I think, start out with this dream to travel, right? And to have a job where we're doing something we love and we're passionate about, and we travel and we get all these incredible experiences. And then life changes, right? And then we have kids, or we just evolve as people, and we want different things. And then all of a sudden that question of like, oh my gosh, how do I take everything that has been a part of me, my whole heart and soul, and then shed things that I am done with, and ready to move on, and not feel like I'm absolutely starting from scratch and I'm starting, like so far behind the 8 ball because of my age now. It's such an interesting situation, I think, that a lot of us find ourselves in. And there's a crossroads where you decide, am I going to listen to this? Am I going to explore it? Am I going to try to figure out a solution? Is there a possible solution, or am I just going to stay, right? Or does that feel too hard and too exhausting? And am I just going to stay in this job? Am I going to stay in this current career? Am I going to, I don't want to say give up that other dream, but am I going to step back from that other dream because it feels too exhausting or hard or scary? And you didn't. You totally raised your hand. You're like, I'm in. I'm like lay it on me. And it's been, oh my gosh, such a honor to be on that journey of watching you pivot into the online space with a new definition of freedom, and being able to impact people in different ways, because you had a primarily really hands-on business. It was a physical hands-on business, right? So to
very much so
shift that into an online capacity is really, really difficult.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was literally a hands-on business where I was touching bodies and giving people a hands-on instruction in their yoga practice and with them in person. So the online space is quite different in how you connect with people, not necessarily just on, Zoom or in a meeting or a workshop. That's fairly similar. I mean, besides that you can't, physically touch someone, you could still see them and hear them and feel their energy and have that connection, which is really important. But yeah, the way that you sort of connect with them, I guess, virtually is a little bit different than just, having a platform that's mainly an in-person platform, and someone, does all the advertising for you, and you get to kind of just show up and be a special guest speaker or special teacher who's able to, do the stuff in person. So yeah, it's quite different. Yeah, but it's been an amazing transition, an amazing evolution, and it's been awesome to be able to. I created an online breathing course. I've taught it 4 times now. I'll be teaching it again later this year, and it's just so powerful because people don't have to travel and spend that money to come see me, and I don't have to travel and spend that money to go see them.
Right? It's freedom for all. It's freedom for all.
But we still connect really deeply, and that's the important part.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I feel like I've been having a lot of conversations about breath work lately. I mean, for me and my own journey with my therapist and my life coach and all those people, I've recognized how much breath work I need in my life. And it's just been a learning for me of the way that my body holds and retains stress, and the way that my body reacts when I get scared, emotionally. And it really is the recognition of me holding my breath. So I hold my breath and I really stop breathing when I get nervous or scared. And particularly it would happen a lot in my conversations with my husband earlier on in our relationship, where I would get really scared that something was going to go the wrong way, or a way I didn't want it to go. And by a way I didn't want it to go, it'd be a way that would put me into a zone of distrust, or assuming the worst, or not knowing how to communicate something I really wanted. Right. There were so many things that came up for me, and I would just not even notice it, but I would hold my breath. And the way that it shut off parts of my brain, right? My ability to like open up and problem solve and see different opportunities of conversation with him was so significant when one of the things that when we were going to therapy back in San Francisco many moons ago, the therapist would notice that I would stop breathing in a conversation, and he would have Colin take his hand and just put it on my chest. And just as soon as he did that, it was like, I was like, and I would instantly cry, right? Because it was like an instant release of like not recognizing how much I was holding in. And so I did a lot of breath work when I was up in San Francisco. I worked on that a lot. Colin and I am so grateful. Like we have this wonderful communicative relationship now. And what's interesting is I kind of was like, yeah, I figured it out. Like I know the secrets. Like I know how to breathe. And then I became an entrepreneur. And I was like, okay, so I'm learning new things. And I didn't realize how emotional being an entrepreneur was going to be. I didn't realize how scared I was going to be. I didn't realize how much it was going to trigger my insecurities and push me in so many different personal ways. I really was just focusing on the business, right? And getting the business right and getting the dollars right and the spreadsheets right and the offers right, and recognize throughout that process how much I stopped breathing again. I really let go of that practice. And so when we had you come in at the Coaches Mastermind, we had you come in and do a couple little 30-minute sessions with all of us. You all of a sudden took us through some exercises, and you also taught us a lot about the science and the way that our bodies work from a scientific perspective. And the combination of being able to do the exercises as well as learn a bit about what was going on, for some reason was a perfect combination for me of like the information and the action I needed to take in a quick 30-minute time slot to have this like beautiful aha of like, oh my goodness, like the amount in which I have ignored this part of my breath and my body has affected my ability to feel calm and less stress and more hopeful. And the things that I always worked on feeling in my relationships, I had kind of neglected in my work. And then it bleeds into your relationships, right? Like the second, like I feel the lack of confidence, the overwhelm, the high stress. And then I come and I try to be with my kids and my husband. It's like, I'm not operating on all four cylinders, So I loved that presentation that you did for us. It was so life-changing for me personally. And so I know I talked to you about this before, and I was like, hey, like, that's all I want you to do. I want you to share some of those things. And you're like, there's so much I could share. But for someone that is either new to breath work, or they are just looking to understand a little bit more about why it's so significant, and it's going to literally increase your dopamine levels and make you a happier human, will you give them a little bit of the basics for that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's such a vast topic, and there's so many different components that go into it, like you say. But, basically stress is like this big term that we use to describe, a way that we're feeling, or like a chain of physiological reactions that are going on in our body. And so, it's the underlying cause for a lot of things, like a lot of addictions, a lot of food cravings, slow digestion, slow metabolism, hormone imbalances, these emotional highs and lows that show up as like anxiety or overwhelm or fatigue, or even like low levels of chronic inflammation in your body, which then can lead to all kinds of autoimmune disorders. I mean, it just kind of wreaks havoc on your emotions, on your ability to concentrate, on your body. And it actually like takes away your joy, really, right? When you're feeling stressed out, it's really hard to feel love or feel relaxed, to feel joy. And so what's really happening is we have this nervous system that has a parasympathetic and a sympathetic branch. And the sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight response. And so it's
it's important that we have this response because it helps us to be saved, from if a car is coming at us, it helps us to get out of the road. Or, if we go back in time, if, a tiger's chasing us, it helps us to run really fast or climb a tree or, hide. So it's there to save our lives. But today, we're not so often faced with like these life-threatening things, but we still have this nervous system that is reacting all the time. And so we have sort of a low level of anxiety or panic or reactiveness that sits in our nervous system. So it's like when you get that email from your boss and you're like, ugh, you just like feel yourself cringe and shudder, right? You're literally like releasing some adrenaline and some cortisol. You're having this reaction like fight, freeze, or flight. Or like if your mom calls and you're just like, oh gosh, no. Or, you look at your to-do list and it's like 7 Post-it notes long. Like it's literally all these little stressors in our days that start to build up, and we start to hold adrenaline, or the adrenaline gets released and we start to build up this cortisol. And then cortisol, what it does is it actually inhibits our body from releasing all those feel-good hormones or feel-good chemicals that you talked about, dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin, which help our brains, our frontal lobes, so our forebrains, to process, to think, to concentrate, to plan. And so as the stress builds up in our body, we literally start to lose our ability to concentrate, to plan, to relax, to feel sexy at the end of the day, to feel like you want to like have a cuddle, because we get stuck in this stress response. And so it increases our health risk for all kinds of problems. And so one of the best ways that you can help to switch over this sort of low-level chronic stress in your body is by focusing on your breath. And the reason for this is that the breath is part of the autonomic nervous system. So it's mainly not something we think about. It's not in our control, or it's not, we don't have to sit there and think, okay, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. We don't have to control what's going on. It's connected to our heart rate. That same way, right? We don't have to tell our heart to beat. It's connected to our digestion, also a process of our autonomic nervous system. We don't have to, be involved consciously with our food digesting. All of these things happen automatically without our conscious intervention. But the breath is a unique sort of aspect of our bodies and our minds in that it is something that we can consciously take control of very easily. And so a regular breathing rate is maybe 8 to 12 breaths. But if I tell you, okay, I want you to inhale for a count of 4, have a slight pause at the top, and exhale for a count of 8, and do that 5 times, then all of a sudden you'll be slowing your breath down to 5 or 6 breaths a minute, which is very helpful because what it does is it starts to stimulate the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is your 10th cranial nerve, which is connected to your brainstem and travels down through your jaw and down through your entire torso. It touches all your organs. And it basically acts as a brake to this stress response. So it helps you transition between the fight or flight reaction back to your normal state, which is more about being relaxed and resting and digesting. If you can believe that's our normal state.
Right.
Most of us feel like the stress reduction is or the stress response is our normal state. But really, when we're most balanced, we're resting more in our parasympathetic nervous system. And this allows us to do things like reproduce. It allows us to experience joy and love and connect with the people around us or the people in front of us. It allows us to feel calm and confident and to think and to plan, to be strategic, to be compassionate and empathetic. And it's all those things that that are really important: reasoning, decision making, feeling the emotions, allowing the emotions to like come up and feeling them and being with them and expressing them in healthy ways. So it's a really important thing that we are able to switch between fight or flight and our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest, or the break. And so by increasing this vagal tone, by strengthening the ability of this nerve to switch between our nervous systems, allows us to move more easily into this naturally relaxed, sweet place where we can then have all these yummy brain chemicals like the oxytocin, the serotonin, the dopamine, come and into our brain and help us also in our days. So the breath is really important. So a simple way, for somebody who's interested in doing something that's absolutely not dangerous at all, because some breath work is not helpful, right? If you're doing breath work in a way that is creating stress, it's going to have the opposite reaction. So not all breath work is created equal.
I didn't know that. So there's breath work out there that will make you more stressed.
Yes, definitely. And it's hard to tell exactly what's going to work for one person or another. That's why it's really helpful to work directly one-on-one with people. And it's very important that if you are studying breath work or learning breath work, that you're learning from someone who is credentialed, who has experience and practice, and isn't just teaching you what they learned from last week's weekend workshop. Yeah, because you are dealing directly with your nervous system when you start to alter the way that you breathe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
I'm envisioning myself and I think I've mentioned this to you before, but there's the Chopra Center right over where we live, right? And they have free meditations that you can go to, or a free meditating hour, basically, where you can go into the meditation room. And my husband and I, when we first moved down here, when we didn't have kids, and we were all we can do whatever we want. Let's go meditate all the time. We went and we would go there in the morning. And it was awful for me. It wasn't oh, my brain's going all over the place. Oh, I'm bored. It was stressful. It was when I was in there, I would get lightheaded. It felt very stressful for me. I wasn't really sure why, but I would just in my brain, I was just do deep breathing, and breathe deep. And I think what I had learned from that was that's not the way that your body needs you to breathe. And it's probably also why I kind of, take a step back from breath work, because in my brain, it makes me feel I get a little bit more jittery and stressed. And when you had come in and done a few sessions for us, I felt the exact opposite. I did not feel stressed. I felt incredibly relaxed. And I've had a few other incredible breathwork teachers that I've worked with personally, right? One-on-one, which is always better for me, because I can learn a little bit. Exactly when you just broke down the science of this, and I wrote down a couple notes when you were taking us through the science of how I can see this showing up in my daily life, which I think is really important. But when you take me through that, it helps me to really understand and visualize what's happening. And there's something about that allows the breath work for me to work better. It's almost like my brain won't let me just kind of fake my way through it. I have to know that this is good and happening. So so when you talk about kind of how that, how this works throughout all of your body and goes throughout all of your organs. I am envisioning now when I'm doing the breath work, I have this visualization of almost it giving life or breath to the every other organ in my body, right? And
beautiful.
When I start to feel that, it feels so much better for me. It feels way less constrained and focused just on breathing out and in your lungs or your belly, or how does it feel in your head? It becomes part of my entire body. And that's where I really start to relax, right? My body starts to get out of my head and it gets really into my body. And so for me, I think there's just a piece like that is maybe skipped over when you're talking to someone about breath work and you're just having maybe that initial conversation, or maybe you're just going for a single session with someone. Often it's just the breath work exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really no education for a personality like myself, right? Like that needs just like a tiny bit of education. Like when you were talking about the way that you look at your Post-it notes, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like having this whole experience where I'm like looking, I need to write a bunch of emails for a launch coming up, right? And I have it blocked out on my calendar because I live by my calendar, right? Like I have to have things on my calendar, whatever I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this block that's like, you need to write, like four emails to go out for this launch. And I swear, I look at that block.
Yeah.
It is instant overwhelm. And I love to write emails. I love to write to connect with my audience. My emails do incredibly well for me and my business, and I find joy in it. And yet there is still something when I look at that block that feels overwhelming. It feels scary. Like I'm sure subconsciously I'm like, great, I'm going to have to put myself out there vulnerably. I'm going to be hard on myself because the emails aren't going to be good enough. It's going to take me so long. What if I have nothing to write? What if I used up all my creative ideas? Like it's like this, I'm terrified, right? Like, so I look at that thing and I feel that, that, and it is turning into cortisol, right? Like it is like instant. Like I like you're walking me through like the scientific process of it. And I'm like, I'm literally thinking about like this block of emails that I have to write. And what I'm gathering from basically the way that you were talking about, getting the oxytocin and the dopamine and the things that are going to allow me to shift out of that terrified state or like feeling overwhelmed, what's going to allow me to shift into this place that makes me happier. And I know this dopamine oxytocin state that you're talking about because I breastfed 2 children and the oxytocin that you feel after that is significant. Like it's like, oh my goodness, this is the insane, like heavy dose of it, right? That like, I'm ready for that. Like if there's something I can do to reproduce some of that in my body, I'm all ears. Like I'd be willing to prioritize that almost as a significant health, like priority in my life, right? Like that would need to go in my top 3. That's next to like going for a run, right? Or eating less sugar, like, because that would be such a significant shift in my life. And so what I'm hearing you say is that breath work, even if I do it in the morning or at night or not in that moment, because there's times where I'll look at my calendar and I won't be in a moment or a place where I can do my breath work immediately. But if I do it in the morning or I make it a consistent practice, then it's almost like I'm strengthening my muscle to be able to shift out of that place of overwhelm and into the place of oxytocin a lot faster. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. If you, take 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you have in the morning, and do a breathwork practice where you're, inhaling, exhaling, lengthening the exhale. And of course, there's different ways you could alternate the nostrils. We did that one, inhaling through the left, exhaling through the right, and then inhaling back through the right, exhaling through the left, that alternate nostril breathing. Always making the exhale twice the length of your inhale, because that's what helps to tone the vagus nerve. Then it'll really help later in the day when you look at that block of time to write your emails, you're not going to have as significant a response, especially if you're doing it daily, right? Because you're going to look at it, you're going to feel the stress less because you've built up this ability to look at it, kind of feel that trigger, feel that stressful trigger, and right away be like, it's okay. No problem. I got this. It can also work that like, okay, you're getting ready to sit down and write those emails and you're still feeling like, oh gosh, I can't, I have nothing to say. What am I going to do? And this is also why sometimes at the beginning of writing, it feels really hard and challenging and you're not really writing very good because your brain is in this beta wave. And we talked a little bit about these brainwave functions, right? And the beta waves, like the pattern we're in when we're, especially as entrepreneurs, where we're planning and scheduling and being like, yes, yes, no, no, checking things off lists. It's like our very analyzing, busy mind that's trying to get so much done. And then we're expected to sit down and like be creative, right? And create content and write that blog post or, write all those emails. And it's like your brain literally can't just shift like boom, boom, boom into like, oh, now I'm creative and relaxed and expressive. And it's almost like it's similar why people struggle with sleeping too, or falling asleep, because if your brain is stuck in this beta wave pattern, in this very active mind state, you really almost need, like, you could think of it as a period of transition to switch into more of an alpha wave, which is more of a slower, more creative, like in the flow. There's a sense of relaxation, reflectiveness, restfulness there. And then, if you want to keep going, there's the theta wave, which is sort of when you're half asleep and half awake, that sort of like slightly dream state. And then delta wave, which is deep sleep. You don't want to go there if you're in work mode. But moving into that more creative place, using the breath can also be a super effective tool. So just like, shutting your computer, saying, okay, I'm going to do 2 minutes, 10 breaths, inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 8 seconds. And if you did 10 breaths like that and then reopened your computer, it would be much easier to like enter into that flow state, which is much more creative. And you're going to tap into that, forebrain, into your frontal lobes of your brain, which are going to be able to help you be, expressive and emotional and like authentic and all of those, things we want when we're creating content.
Oh my goodness. Do you ever notice, or is there any research to prove that people they think they like to be in that active, did you call it the beta wave?
Yeah. It's a little bit addictive for sure.
Like in my brain, like I'm thinking, because when I go to bed, I'm such a night owl. So it's so hard for me to transition out of that place where I'm just like, what else do I need to do? What, and my husband is the opposite. He's a morning person. So we lay down in bed.
Yeah.
And then he's like instantly asleep, like instantly snoring. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So I'm like on my phone, Googling things like, when did the universe start? And, my brain's just like super like, oh my gosh, like what's the effects on children when they have too much screen time, like all of these things that I've been wondering. And it's almost like it's an addictive, like I want to do it, right? Like I almost don't want to transition over into sleep. And then when I do, it takes me a really long time. Definitely when I do a bit of a meditation, that's the easiest transition for me. But I often will read, and I will read something that probably takes my brain out of that super active beta state. I'll read something that's like more like historical fiction and really story based and emotional and narrative based. And I allow myself to really detach from the day and go into a different world. And then I can usually fall asleep.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, it's a pattern, right? And like everything in our life, we get attached to certain patterns, and definitely certain personalities, certain constitutions are more, there's just people who walk slow and there's people who walk fast. There's people who speak slow. There's people who speak fast, right? Like there's just different quality traits. We have different DNA, and it's the same when it comes to sort of like breathing patterns, patterns of thinking. And so it's interesting you bring up like reading something that like moves you into a more like creative, relaxed state in your mind, because that's definitely one of the ways that helps you transition out of that processing mind into a more like relaxed, sort of ready to sleep, brainwave. And as your brainwave keeps slowing down, then you transition into theta, and then you're asleep.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay. Do you have a super, super simple exercise that you would give someone, like if they, like people are probably driving in the car right now, or they're doing the dishes, or getting like 2 minutes away from their kids. But if someone wanted to just do it like right now, either on this podcast with us, or they wanted to do it as soon as they got off, to start really working on that muscle, like in a 2-minute period, right? Like in a 2 or 3 minute period, just starting to work on that. And I say it's a muscle, but to strengthen that, vagal tone. That's the right word, right?
Yes. That is, the vagus nerve.
To like really allow that, so that when they look at the to-do list, or they look at the business they want to start, or, they look at the job they want to leave, or they look at the email they want to write to announce that they're becoming a coach, like all of those things that are creating so much cortisol, right? Like that are contributing to that, like giving them, it's like, I feel like you're giving them this little kind of like secret potion that's going to help them get closer to a little drop of dopamine or a little drop of oxytocin that's going to make that a more joyful process versus a stressful process.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so important because, as you mentioned, at the beginning, especially like as entrepreneurs or coaches, or when you're starting your business, I used to have like a 3-hour yoga practice, like literally. And then you like transition into like, especially like if it's online and there's just so many things to do, it's like your personal time for self-care shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. It feels like you have to really put up some strong boundaries there.
Yes.
So an easy 2-minute exercise is just taking 10 breaths with your inhale, trying to make your inhale as long as you can, maybe 4 seconds, maybe 5 seconds. That might feel like a lot. And then exhale for double. So exhale for 8 seconds or exhale for 10 seconds. And if you do 10 breaths like this, it will be about 2 minutes. And if you want to like give yourself even a little bit more like of a supercharge, you could try inhaling for 4, holding for 4, and then again, exhaling for double. So exhaling for 8. And do, 5 to 10 breaths that way. And those two are really simple. You can do it driving. You could do it sitting. You can do it while you're washing dishes. It's something that you can... of course, it's going to be like a little bit more effective if you're sitting and concentrating on it and paying really close attention to it. But it's something that you can just develop a habit of, for just slowing the breath down, stimulating that vagus nerve to increase your vagal tone with that extra long exhale. And it will help you to develop a more regular pattern of breathing, especially if your breathing is a little bit irregular. Another easy exercise, and kids love this one, so you can do it with your kids. It's kind of nice before bed, is called the humming bee breath. It has a Sanskrit name called Brahmari, but you can call it the humming bee breath, easier to remember. And this is just inhaling through both nostrils and then exhaling with the humming sound, like a gentle, sweet for as long as you can. And if you do 10 breaths like that, it'll be probably about 2 minutes. And, it's one of the easiest exercises for kids to get them into like really just lengthening that exhale. It's stimulating, because another way to increase vagal tone is by like singing or gargling or humming. So it helps to stimulate that vagus nerve and also helps the mind to calm down. You're literally affecting your brain waves with the humming sound and concentrating on that sound. So it's a wonderful one to do before bed to help just like transition from that beta processing wave into that alpha state that you want to be in, that's more calm and relaxed, to help you go to sleep.
I mean, I could listen to you do that all day long. Just listening to you do that. You called it the humming bee?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can just think of it like inhaling through both nostrils and then making the sound of like a sweet sound, not like a harsh sound.
Yeah.
But like a sweet sound like the bee. It's just a hum, So for as long as you can. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I feel like that would be so good for me to do with my Kenna bear too, and Danny too, when she gets older as well. But like, yeah, you get to the end of the day and man, you are just, I feel like we're always so wired. I'm wired, she's wired, and getting to that sweet spot of just feeling calm and reading a book and singing a song, the settle down, like the bedtime routine, it never goes as smoothly as you think it's supposed to go ever. I feel like this would be a good integration. I think we underestimate the importance of helping our children and ourselves, but our children as well, figure out how to calm their own bodies down. And I feel like that's a tool that will benefit both of us. I love that.
Especially before bed. I know my son, even now at 11 years old, has trouble transitioning from being awake to falling asleep, tapping into ways that we feel relaxed and learning to kind of biohack this vagus nerve that helps us transition between these two states, between the fight or flight and the rest and digest. When we're in that relaxed, resting state, it's like the state of falling in love or looking at a sunset or seeing something beautiful. So when you look out at a beautiful view, it helps you immediately. You feel relaxed, right? You start to come down from this high processing place into, you feel completely refreshed. And so even that's why practices of cultivating gratitude or loving kindness meditation can be really helpful in because it's training your brain to move into that state. So it helps you to kind of activate that vagus nerve and feel that love and compassion and empathy. Even before you go to bed, you could do the Brahmari or the humming bee breath with Kenna, and then you could think of 10 things that you're grateful for and go between each other. And it's very relaxing for kids to just think of things that they feel love for, gratitude for. And it's nice for us too, as moms, it's just a nice thing to train our brains at night to just focus on all the good things that we, love and feel grateful for at the end of the day.
Oh my goodness. I love that. And you're bringing me back to when we first brought Kenna home from the hospital. She was not a sleeper. She did not, she was not able to sleep easily those first few months. And she responded. And now this is making me think it was all the vagal tone, but she responded really well to us talking in this really low, calming voice. And whenever we would sing, it would have to be in this low, calming voice. And whenever we talked, she would fall asleep when we talked. So my husband and I, we would put her down, but we would talk. We would go in her room and one of us would hold her. Yeah. And we'd go back and forth saying the things that we were grateful for. And that's what was our conversation. And we would keep going back and forth until she fell asleep. And it was such a beautiful thing for us. It was so calming and peaceful. And it's funny, you get, she's 5 now, it's 5 years later and you forget about those things. And oh man, that would be such a good practice to reintegrate back into both of our kids' lives and for Colin and I. And man, so cool to hear the science behind it too, to recognize oh man, it wasn't just magic. There's some science behind that. There's things going on in your body that made that actually happen.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes we think, oh, that's nice. And, we think it's a bit woo woo, or it's oh, that'd be nice if I had time for it. But when you understand that it's actually physiologically changing the way your body works, and it actually physiologically changes structures in your brain, and it actually helps you to absorb more oxygen. It helps to give your brain more oxygen. It helps to release these chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin. You're literally doing something to yourself when you engage in loving kindness, gratitude practices, when you engage in consciously taking control of your breath and extending the exhale, when you're singing, when you're humming. It's no accident that, when you're feeling maybe a little bit stressed or you're feeling a little bit down and you start singing, you start to relax and feel better.
I love it. Oh my goodness. So many good nuggets here. Harmony, you are amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I took like 7 million notes, so I am surprised. I learned even more today than I did last time. If people want to be in your world, they want to follow you, they want to learn more from you, where should we send everybody?
Yeah, well, I would love, you can hop on over to my website, harmonyslater.com, and you can follow me on Instagram, Harmony Slater Yoga, or the Finding Harmony podcast is also on Instagram. And yeah, you can be teaching my breathwork course again, hopefully starting mid-October. So I'd love if you wanted to join. We go through all of these different breathing techniques, some of which I've spoke about today and many more, and talk about the science and help you to cultivate your very own personal breathwork practice.
I love it. Thank you so much, my dear. You are amazing. As always, so grateful for you.
Thank you so much. It was just such a pleasure to have this time to connect with you again here and to connect with your audience. And thank you for having me on.
If today's conversation sparks something in you, a desire for more calm, more clarity, a simple tool that could actually fit into your real life, well, I have a treat for you. I've created a free 2-minute morning breathwork practice just for this purpose. It is the perfect starting point if you're feeling stressed, scattered, or just craving a moment of peace before the day begins. This short daily ritual will help you to regulate your nervous system, reset your energy, and show up with more intention in your work, in your relationships, and in your leadership. You can download it now, find the link in the show notes, and begin. Today, tomorrow morning, you'll start to feel more grounded, more centered, and fully in your breath, more present in your life. It only takes 2 minutes, but it might just change your entire day. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.